Now, the driver that I have in my hands here might just be the best value for money product I've tested so far this year. Now, I was fitted for this a couple of months ago, and the model that I've got in my hands here comes in well under £300 here in the UK, $300 in the US. And since I've received it, I've hit it on a launch monitor up against a more premium price driver, and I've hit it extensively on the golf course and on the driving range, and I have been really quite impressed by this. Now, there's quite a bit to talk about, so we're here at the London Club. Let's get started. Right, so I'm sure there's a few people out there who might have already guessed what driver it is that I'm holding, but before I tell you exactly what it is, I'm going to talk a bit about the looks and the feel. And as you set the driver down behind the ball, it has what I would describe as quite a generous footprint, so it just looks fairly big without being too big, so it feels quite easy to hit. It feels like there's a lot of club down behind the ball, and I think that's a good thing. It feels to me like this is going to be easy to hit. And in terms of the styling and the aesthetics, it's very simple. So there's a kind of almost like a triangular area that highlights some carbon on the crown, and it also helps to frame the ball nicely down behind the ball. There's a very simple alignment aid, but it's all very subtle. There's nothing about this driver that kind of is leaping out at me as being a kind of Marmite thing that people are either going to love or going to hate. I think it's the sort of thing that a lot of people will like. In terms of the looks, I'd be interested to hear what you think. Do you think this looks like a premium driver? Do you think this looks like a driver that could cost you around about the 500 mark? Or do you think it's something that's maybe a little bit below that? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. And actually, quite a nice comparison in terms of the aesthetics is with the Callaway Rogue ST. I'd say the Callaway Rogue ST certainly looks a little longer from front to back, probably a little bit bigger overall, and possibly a little bit more refined overall. But having said that, I think the club that I've got in my hands here, it looks really good down behind the ball. Now, in terms of the feel, actually I'm going to hit one first, and then I'll talk to you about what the feel is like. So listen out for how it sounds through impact. So to me, the sound and the feel I would describe as lively. So it's not as sort of dull and as muted as you'll find elsewhere on the driver market. Certainly that Callaway driver is a little bit more muted than this one here. But actually I think it's the feel suits the look. So it feels generous down behind the ball, and then when you hit it, it's got that quite loud, high-pitched impact sound that makes it feel easy to hit. Okay, so that's my assessment on the looks and the feel. I think it's time I told you exactly what this driver is. It is the PXG 0211. And as I say, I was fitted for this. It has a Diamana 60S X-Flex shaft in it. As I said, comes in under £300. And there are a few more points I need to make about the performance. Okay, so as I mentioned at the start, I've hit this driver on a launch monitor up against the TaylorMade Stealth Plus that I was also fitted for a few months ago, and I will talk you through that data in a little bit. But before I do that, I'm going to tell you how this performed for me out on the golf course. I've hit it a couple of times, but one of the rounds I had Arcos running and I played 9 holes with it. What's quite interesting about that is that I think I was averaging 268 off the tee with this driver, which isn't necessarily particularly long for me, but it did include one hole where I had to shape the ball quite heavily from left to right around the corner of a dogleg. I did hit one drive during that round that went over 290 yards, which is really good distance for me, and I think it shows that this driver does offer good distance for me. But what's more interesting, I thought, when I hit this was just how easy it was to hit, how easy it was to launch. Interestingly, the head that I've got, that I was fitted for, is 10.5 degrees. Now that's a little bit higher lofted than I tend to be fitted for, but it did seem to translate into a really sort of easy to launch, easy to hit driver that just felt very forgiving and very friendly and playable while I was out on the golf course. It sort of suits the look and the feel that I've already talked about. Now, I've got 5 golf balls in front of me, as you can see. I'm on the 15th hole here at the London Club. I'm going to hit all 5 of these golf balls, and we'll walk up and find out how far they've gone and where they are. Okay, so 5 shots hit, some good strikes, some bad strikes. Be interesting to see where they finished. Okay, so some quite interesting findings. As I mentioned on the tee, some different strikes. So I hit one that was right out the bottom, I hit one that was out of the toe, and then the others I hit pretty well. And the difference between my longest and my shortest shot was only around about 18 yards. So my longest shot is up here. Hopefully you can see that on the fairway out there. That leaves around about 50 yards into the green. There's one in the left-hand semi, and then if I swing around here, you'll see my cameraman Muzzer gives a wave. 1, 2, and then one in the right-hand semi as well. So not a huge difference in terms of distance. I'd say the average distance that I hit those is about 270. So that would correlate with what I found while I was testing it out on the golf course. It's pretty good distance, I would say, in these conditions. You know, if I was hitting it in the middle of summer, it was bone dry, I'd expecting these shots to be another 15 or so yards up the fairway. So all in all, really quite impressed because, as I said, I hit those shots in a variety of locations around the face, and as you can see, they've all done fairly well. Okay, so I have tested these 2 drivers up against each other on a TrackMan launch monitor at King's Golf Studio using Titleist Pro V1 X golf balls, and here is the data, and it's quite interesting. So firstly, to speak about the TaylorMade Stealth Plus, really pleased with the performance of this. I was really well fitted for it, and I can see it in the numbers. It performs really well for me. In particular, when you put these 2 drivers against each other, I think the big difference for me, looking at the data, is the ball speed. And not only the ball speed, but also the head speed. So the Stealth Plus was moving a little bit faster through the air, which I think speaks to the work that TaylorMade have done on the inertia generator on the back of the head. And it delivered more ball speed. And because the spin was under control, because of the really good fitting and because of the head that I was fitted into, that delivered me fantastic distance, and sort of consistency of distance as well was very good. But the PXG wasn't too far behind. Yes, I was giving up a little bit of distance, but as I said, out on the golf course, that distance didn't really seem to sort of cost me too much. I felt like I was in good control of this driver. And it is important to note that this isn't their premium tour played driver, that's the 0811. So I think for the money, the difference in price between these 2 drivers, the TaylorMade Stealth Plus coming in at just under £500, the 0211 from PXG coming in at just under £300, there's not a massive gulf in terms of performance for me. Yes, if I was picking purely on performance, I would go with the TaylorMade Stealth Plus, but the PXG 0211, I think when you look at the data and at the performance I was able to get on the golf course, I think it says there's a reasonable amount of performance to be gained from this driver. Okay, so there you have it. That's my review of the PXG 0211. Has anyone watching this video used this driver? Have you bought this driver? If so, please do leave some comments. We'd be really interested to hear what your experiences of it have been, because for me, this is an excellent value for money product, one of the best that I've seen in 2022. But that's it for now from the London Club. Thank you very much for watching. We will see you next time.